Men, what is something that other men do that makes you say, yeah, they're gonna be single forever? I feel like this thread is filled with some pretty obvious tropes, the classic incel, quote unquote alpha, misogynist types, etc. I still feel there are some less obvious traits, though, that contribute to being single later in life. As I've gotten older and made my way through life, I tend to see things through a slightly different lens when it comes to relationships. If I'm looking for a potential partner, I'm assessing them based on long-term potential. I know that at some point as a couple, we're going to face hard times, whether that be job loss, illness, family stress, or tragedy. When I am dating someone that I could see myself marrying, I'm asking myself honestly whether I think this person is who I want beside me facing those types of things. Yes, there are many obvious red flags that indicate this person may not be a good partner to face life's challenges with, but there's also more subtle cues. For instance, being unhealthy, poor financial decisions, poor career choices, and unwillingness to compromise or listen to others with differing opinions, and an overall sense that this person doesn't handle stress well or buckles easily under pressure. Social media gives a lot of insight to these sorts of traits if you pay attention. Thinking about how many of the people I know that are perpetually single here are a few examples. The first is my old college professor. He's incredibly bright, has a very lucrative career, and is moderately attractive. However, he let his PhD go to his head and makes it clear he is the smartest guy in the room. His analysis of every situation is the quote-unquote correct analysis, and he will intellectualize everything to the point that it's pointless to challenge anything he says. This does not necessarily mean he is wrong, but it does imply that as life struggles come along, he is unwilling to work as a team without having the upper hand or the final say. That just doesn't play well when you're in a marriage where you have to lean on each other for support and need to trust each other's judgment. There's another guy that has a bit more obvious traits, but I don't believe those are the end-all be-all to why he remains single. He's not healthy, massively overweight, poor hygiene, and comes across as passive-aggressively bitter. He does not have a job but collects disability and lives with his grandmother at 35 years old. Now, he is actually a very nice person with a huge heart. His sister passed away recently, and he's been an absolute stellar uncle to her son. He has quite a following of friends on social media and quite a few friends in real life as well. He isn't overly picky about women he'd be interested in dating either, but he has a constant need for validation and attention. Being open about your problems is one thing, oversharing very private and intimate details about your life and others for nothing more than to garner sympathy from others states very clearly that he cannot handle pressure or stress of any kind. He's been in and out of hospitals for mental health, mostly due to depression. There's nothing wrong with a person having mental health struggles, but the vast majority of people aren't going to line up to be a caretaker for the person who should be their partner to face life. The last example is my sister. On the surface, one would think she has a good head on her shoulders for the most part, in moderately good health, has her own house, a decent job, but she is a habitual oversharer and has very self-destructive patterns to her life. Like the last guy, she looks for constant validation and attention, but she also crumbles underneath any pressure or stress at all while sharing it with anyone who will listen. She's not reaching out for help, but attention and validation that she's always in the right. She calls herself a survivor and plays the victim card every chance she gets, but fails to understand that she is the root cause of many of her issues. She will date incredibly toxic men, neglect her son, put herself and her son in cruel situations, but then victimize herself. She goes to counseling but is very good about twisting her explanations of events to get her counselors to side with her, rather than getting help for her own self-destructive behavior. She gets her validation from the therapist, then starts to circle all over again without understanding the underlying root cause because she can't be honest with herself or the therapist. Therapy only works if the patient is completely open and honest. Anytime she meets a genuinely good person who would be a great partner, they bail about 6 months into the relationship, just long enough for the dating phase to come off. Story 2. I know this one dude can find something physically wrong with literally everyone. You can introduce him to literally the most beautiful person you have ever seen, and he'll go, nah, I don't like her earlobes, or those elbows are too pointy, and then pass on her. I don't get it. He's voluntarily single but doesn't realize it. He's not an incel or anything because he's a good-looking, charismatic guy, and turns down women over the dumbest crap and then complains that he's having a perpetual dry spell. Story 3. I think the question is flawed. Most people can find someone if they lower their standards enough. Crappy people come in all genders, lol, but I do often look at guys and think you're going to have relationship problems your entire life and you're never going to realize why. And I think the answer is an inability to connect with one's emotions along with a lack of capacity for empathy. Nearly every guy needs to spend extra time working on understanding their feelings, their toxic tendencies. Most guys are extremely jealous people because of how a partner's infidelity is viewed as a slight to your masculinity, along with other issues for similar reasons, and practicing listening to specifically the deeper message of whatever your partner is saying. For example, they constantly have to remind you to make the bed. They're thinking, why won't he just spend the extra 5 minutes doing something that makes me happy? Along with it, also annoying them, lol. As men, we're socialized to push aside our emotions, which absolutely can have its benefits. And there are certain women out there who love that in a guy, though I couldn't imagine choosing someone as a life partner who thought it was cringed every time I had feelings, lol. But nearly every guy I see who doesn't practice those skills is constantly at odds with their significant other, even if not directly fighting. Story 4. Letting their whole world revolve around this website or any other internet forum. Sure, a lot of us are here every day because we're on the clock and I have nothing better to do at work, but there are tons of men who spend massive amounts of their free time engaging with anonymous people on the internet. If you're so invested in Reddit and Twitter and YouTube that you routinely get into heated debates or even just ask pointless questions outside of working hours, then you probably need more hobbies and you probably have an unfulfilling social life. This very post is a great example. If OP is using massive amounts of his free time to ask and respond to questions like this, then obviously something is wrong with his social life. He could be spending time with friends, spending time with women, or simply doing something worthwhile like playing guitar, biking, fixing an old motorcycle, etc. Being social is what allows one to find romantic relationships. Doing things and having skills is what makes one attractive to others. Typing endlessly into the void very rarely has any positive results. And again, I'm not saying that internet forums are bad. Obviously, I frequent them. Leaving a comment here and there is perfectly normal behavior. I'm saying that if an internet forum is your main hobby, you're spending hours commenting and replying to people daily, then that suggests that you have no real skills or hobbies and that you're not socializing with people in real life. A man with no skills is not an attractive person. Obviously, there are outliers. Some people meet their spouses through online forums, but those are clearly the exception. Your average male hermit is some lonely guy who religiously watches Jordan Peterson videos or Andrew Tate or Ben Shapiro, etc., and then logs into a comment section somewhere just so he can get into name-calling matches with anyone who is any different from himself. I saw a question just recently on Reddit asking what challenges men face. The most common answer was loneliness. I'm just going to take a wild guess that the people who are fixated to Reddit are more prone to loneliness than people who spend their evenings going fishing with their friends or watching a movie with their girlfriend or even just learning carpentry alone in their shed. Story 5. Insecurity, controlling behavior, and jealousy. These are immediate red flags. I recently ran into a guy I used to casually hang out with at a few open mics and bars in my city when I was in my early 20s. He had moved away and was visiting, I guess. This dude is a phenomenal guitar player and kinda just your goofy, out there looking metalhead. Usually the best kind of people, right? It was cool just saying hey and briefly introducing him to my wife. That's when he got weird. He started talking about how females around here are all just easy. Cue weird alarm bells in my head. He said, I'm so lucky and my wife is totally hot. And I said, hell yeah, man, I definitely married up. He then started on about how he never has any luck on Tinder. Chicks aren't loyal. They're not into him. All the normal, weird, borderline incel stuff. He saw my wife talking to another guy across the place and asked if that bothered me. I said, no, I know pretty much everyone and trust her anyway, so who cares? He looked at me like he was trying to solve a complex math equation in his head. I ended up indirectly trying to give him a lesson on how to chill the hell out. I was the same way when I was like 18, but dude, we're pushing 30. I told him if someone wants to buy her a drink but isn't disrespectful or handsy, that's rad. Saves me $6. She wants to talk to whoever she wants? Awesome, I'm gonna do the same. She wants to dress suggestively? Hell yeah, she's a dime. I test drove a Ferrari, I bought the Ferrari, and now I'm gonna be mad or frustrated that people are looking at my Ferrari? Screw that, I have a buddy who I once heard tell his girlfriend, dress suggestively, I can fight, and I adopted that mentality, even though I can't fight. Seriously though, being a jealous, controlling schmuck isn't going to draw people to you or keep them loyal. In fact, it'll do the opposite, and it screams desperation. Trust your partner, give them some frickin' breathing room, allow them to be themselves, and magically they'll want to jump your bones for it. Story 6. There are a lot of things that lower a man's chances of being in a relationship. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are still widely tolerated in relationships and marriages though. Sexist? Lots of sexist guys who are married with a family. Egotistic? Lots of egotistic guys who are married with a family. Toxic masculinity? Lots of guys suffering from toxic masculinity who are married with a family. However, the one thing that I think is most likely to lead to a man having trouble maintaining a relationship is not being able to hold an okay job. It might just be who I hang out with, but I don't have many examples to point to in my life where a 30-plus-year-old adult male with an essentially minimum wage job has stable relationships. Story 7. I knew a guy who would brag about the girls he slept with and was on multiple dating sites looking to fool around. We were roommates for a brief time, so I would see the calls and one-nighters showing up occasionally. He had a kid from a marriage that only lasted a couple of years and recently broke up with his girlfriend of 2 years after having a kid with her as well. He would always be telling me to go after some girls at the bar. You could be both those chicks. I'd been taking some time after a bad relationship, but he couldn't really comprehend what that meant. He has had some relationships, but they never seem to be stable. Story 8. I'm surprised to see crappy people with a partner, but one thing I know for sure is that there are people who are single due to their own lack of self-confidence. Not just shy guys, but people who genuinely believe they will forever be alone. It's honestly their mindset. They are average or below average dudes who want like an 8 out of 10 or higher. And if they can't find a woman like that, they will never try. When an average woman talks to them, they either become misogynistic or they can't treat them like people. Just because you only want someone out of your league doesn't mean you can't just have friends or learn how to socialize in a way that isn't about one thing. They lack social interaction skills because they don't want to just interact normally with the opposite gender. But because of their lack of social skills, they fumble and fail on the actual chances they choose to take. Or they never take that chance and get mad just to blame others for their own shortcomings. That's a single dude. I've seen jobless, cheating guys get women and use them. I've never seen those other guys ever have a girlfriend. Story 9. One guy I know always complains he can't get a girl, yet seems to think it should just all work out. Never does and cannot understand why. Super into anime, not a problem, except he's into those weird Vocaloid childlike characters and childlike characters in general. Very weird, but will adamantly defend the crap, whatever. Will only look for women who aren't overweight, and guess what? He's not in the most pristine shape himself. He essentially looks like the comic book store clerk from The Simpsons, though not as big, but expects that he should be able to land women in much better shape than him, while absolutely not give any time of day to anyone who isn't his ideal picture of a woman. Habitually crushes on anyone who gives him any form of attention or who he thinks he has a chance with, continually complains when it obviously doesn't work out. He's just going to continue to expect some girl to date him while complaining he's single forever probably, with no attempt to improve himself whatsoever. Story 10. To be honest, I know a lot of men who display traits mentioned in the top voted comments here, and they still get girlfriends and eventually end up with someone. It feels more like just venting by a lot of people. Just being frank here and thinking about the single men I do know who are well into their 40s or older, I'd say the number one common factor is that they're married to their jobs and have no hobbies. All these guys do is work, go home, and go back to work. They're never going to meet anyone unless they break the cycle and make an effort to put themselves out there and meet people. Ask them what they're doing tonight or this weekend, and it's all about catching the game or watching TV, basically waiting until the next shift starts. It's the saddest thing. Story 11. Bad hygiene, dismissive attitude towards women, misogyny, huge $80,000 truck, rented apartment with roommates, poor priorities, no track record of long-term relationships, bad track record in long-term relationships, i.e., she left, he was a man-child, cruel, or otherwise not fully committed to the other person. Can't say anything nice about people they used to date. Either they have terrible judgment and only date terrible people, or they lack the ability for introspection and can't see any part of previous relationships where they were wrong. Too much drinking, smoking, or chewing tobacco, disgusting. Just off the top of my head. Story 12. I've also seen the worst of the worst cases get a girlfriend, but I would say the most probable reason not to is just being unattractive and socially awkward. The second reason is not putting yourself in social situations and only hanging out in all-male groups or at work. This is especially true if your job is an all-male field and you have no hobbies involving other people. The third reason, but only if they are not attractive, is not considering women the same as men or just having an alpha attitude. This can manifest as being rudely competitive towards guys and condescending towards girls, trying to initiate conversations but being so used to treating women differently than men that all your conversations are just a distraction to try to date girls. Story 13. My best friend, he keeps getting in his own way, never really finishes anything because it's hard. He falls back and shells up, so it's just a circle of failure. Very critical of himself, like he wants to be the martyr for the world. Very strange concept to me. A beautiful woman that checked all his boxes literally said, "If you lose some weight, I'll date you." He did not lose a pound. I don't know. He talks about what would make him get his confidence back, almost makes it to that point, slacks off, and then just doesn't finish. I have supported him for years, but I'm running out of things to say. I've got my own family now, getting in his own way and not giving himself grace. Way too critical. Story 14. Not looking after yourself, drinking too much, refusing to take things like diet and exercise seriously, essentially refusing to grow up, lacking empathy, being unable to have a discussion without getting angry and without throwing tantrums, Some men genuinely can't figure out the difference between having a good conversation and complaining/gossiping, or forcing their way of thinking on others. Draining other people's energy by whining about mundane crap isn't cool. Being rigid, being overly attached to principles, and refusing to learn. There's a point where ideology becomes a burden rather than a useful guideline, and where it prevents people from connecting. Men can be prejudiced and dogmatic about other men, the bourgeois, Muslims, women. The refusal to change and the stupid misplaced pride that causes this are utterly repulsive. Interrupting others all the time. Story 15. I can use 2 examples for this, plus a bit of background explanation as to why, because why complain about an issue when you can go for the source? One for someone I know, one for myself. One never really tries or manages to see the other person's POV. This usually happens with people that have severe self-esteem issues, maybe landed into the manosphere and generally have a more conflictual relationship with women. Might be trauma-related or because of crappy parenting, maybe both. 2, just lacks the guts to go for it. I feel like this applies to a ton of people, much more than the loud crowd people seem to be talking about here. Sure, those guys are schmucks, but they rarely ever get a girl. If you want to look at people that go years without finding a relationship, look for these socially anxious types, those that never really learn how to date and or flirt or pick up on signals. Let's be honest, when you're out on the town, more often than not, the girl you're hanging out with is not going to spell it out that she's into you because that ruins the atmosphere or the game or whatever. And that leads them to always becoming friends but never moving past that. Basically, the guys that don't like or know how to approach and are stuck until they either get lucky and a girl approaches them, or they manage to work through their issues and get back on their feet. Story 16. I have a friend who I believe is at his core a kind-hearted guy. Fiercely loyal and always there if you need him, but the way he views women and treats relationships is so completely screwed that I believe he will never maintain a serious and healthy relationship. He has horribly low self-esteem and dates like it. He seems to be drawn towards women who have equally low self-esteem, whether it's due to their weight or appearance, or due to mental health issues, and he acts surprised when he doesn't enjoy dating them. He's all but stopped trying to introduce them to me and my fiancé because so far they've all been either awful or so devoid of personality that we can find little good to say about them. When I try to have a heart-to-heart with him about relationships, he puts his guard up and implies that he's only with the girl because he wants some place to stick it. He claims to want to work on himself but can never seem to stick with it, even with support. He has recently gotten very serious about video games though, so he's got that going for him. Story 17. Back when I was 19, I got invited out by a few single mates to have a few beers. When we got to the bar, they did what they called going hunting, which was a bit weird, but I was there to have some drinks, so I just watched. Essentially, these two had just read The Game and were just so cringy in how they had pre-set out rules that they used to talk to girls. One of them would go chat with a woman, and the other would stay back and whisper in my ear all of the plays his friend was doing. It was really gross and super weird. When they both literally had a 0% hit rate, I asked them why they were doing it this way. One of them asked how I got my girlfriend at the time. I told them, I don't know, I just started talking to her like a person and we hit it off. And they scoffed and said that method wasn't reliable. That was a weird night. I didn't really hang out with them anymore after that, and one is now divorced with a kid and the other appears to have settled down, so that's good for them. But there was certainly some weird stuff they had going on with women at the time. Story 18. Blatantly desperate. One dude I knew in and slightly after high school would always talk about how he wishes he had a girlfriend and how he is forever alone. Remember that meme? The kind of dude to hold a hug me sign at an anime convention. Even the runner-ups for Biggest Losers I know are now in long-term relationships because at least they weren't that level of desperate. We're all about 30 now, and to the best of my knowledge, he has yet to kiss a girl. And if any of these stories are getting to you, you know what to do. Don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos just like this. Story 19. This is more general, but I'm sure everyone present will have someone pop into their heads when I say the words lack social awareness. That type of person will be single forever. Example 1, I met a dude on campus and he seemed cool enough, so I invited him back to our residency building to hang out with me, some friends, and some girls. Tell me why this dude announces loud and proud that he hates black culture to a group mainly consisting of people of color. Example 2, a dude in my friend group was introduced to some girls that my other friends were chatting with. Before even giving his name, he deadpans a sup witch directly at one of the poor girls, immediately ruined his chance at ever getting invited out with us again. Moral of the story, just take a second to think about what you're planning on saying, man. It helps way more than you can imagine. Story 20. It's not so much what they do as it is what they don't do. Pay little to no attention to their personal appearance. Exhibit little ambition. They don't really have any long-term goals or plan to achieve any. Have a disorganized, untidy living space. You can be smart, you can be funny, you can be a genuinely nice guy. But if you look like a slob and live like one, your chances of getting the girl of your dreams lie somewhere between 1% and 0. I would go to the gym and work out 6 days a week, but I also used to go without shaving, and my wardrobe was mostly t-shirts, jeans, and running shoes. So the women I was interested in were never interested in me. Then I went back to school, university, and got a pretty good job. I had to shave regularly and dress better, and suddenly a lot more women were interested in me, and I ended up getting married almost 20 years ago. Story 21. I went to a birthday party years ago at a bar. It was for a female coworker, right? It was me and only a few others who went. I got to meet her boyfriend, one of her neighbors, and a friend that her neighbor brought. 3 guys, me, and the birthday lady. Boyfriend was like 45, slick back hair, tight stylish jeans, skin tight black button up, and when my coworker wasn't around him, he was hitting on the bartenders and waitresses. Her neighbor was 60-something and had the same clothing setup. He hit on women all night. His friend was 24 and had the same setup. I was the odd duck at 23, wearing a flannel and jeans. Watching those 3 drink with each other, eye women together, and stand at the bar with one another was eerie. Literally watch an adult lifetime of schmuckery live and breathe in front of me. Story 22. My husband says he thinks a lot of men are too shallow. There's nothing wrong with having high standards and people can't force attraction, but he said he gets frustrated that his cousin and one of his friends constantly complain they're single, but won't even consider dating a woman who's bigger than a size 2. We're in the Midwest, so there's not like there's an abundance of size 002 women to begin with. He said he's tired of going out and hearing them whine about it, but then snub a cute girl who's a size 6 because she is quote-unquote too big. He doesn't know if that's really a true attraction thing or if they're only wanting hot women because they think that women are more high value. My own brother developed an eating disorder trying to get 6-pack abs because he only wants to date 10s, so he wants the perfect body to attract them. Story 23. I know a lot of men who do things that they specifically know don't attract women or actively repel women, and then talk about how angry it makes them. Fitness, academia, anything that could be made exclusionary. I know a guy who is into the stock market and knows women just wouldn't be interested in learning it, and acts like that makes him better instead of worse. If you're able to develop new interests, you just need to pick one thing that's interesting to other people and you'll be fine. Don't pick fringe ones and use them as character development arcs. Story 24. That guy who tries too hard to appeal to other guys. He wants a woman that will get him respect from other dudes, only picks up a hobby, movie, music, sports, activities if it helps him connect to other bros. Only praises how such famous male musicians, actors, fitness, sport athletes are cool and an inspiration to him. Will tell you he wish he had a sports car to get ladies, but in reality just wants male praise from other bros. The worst is when he's not your typical jock, just some short dude with big biceps and average looks, lol. Story 25. I know a guy who insists he is the biggest feminist. He is the most aware of all social problems. He is the smartest and knows all the answers. He is the most emotionally mature person he knows, and so on. But he's also one of the most irresponsible, immature people I know who puts women on a pedestal and falls head over heels madly in love with the idea of them as soon as one pays him any attention. But he doesn't really understand other people as complex, flawed humans at all. He's a man-child who can't take care of himself and expects some perfect storybook woman to fix him. He's like a left-wing incel crossed with Donald Trump. Story 26. How is she going to do all the childcare and have a full-time job? Like, even if she worked nights and didn't sleep, that would still put him on duty in the evenings. Like, does he think this 19-year-old will also have the watch thing Dumbledore gave Hermione, and more importantly, that she'll use it to create more time for work on top of raising a family and keeping the house clean? Why have a second income if you're not going to use some of it to hire people to help? Like, besides being gross and misogynistic, this doesn't even make logical sense based on our understanding of how time works. What an idiot. Story 27. I'm a woman, but I knew a guy in high school who had dated so many girls. Most of his relationships lasted either a week or a few days. He dated one girl 4 times, and the last time they got together only lasted until lunchtime. He also fell in love really fast but was rejected a lot, and then he would act all pathetic about it for the day and then fall for another girl not long after. He dated a mutual friend of ours, who I'm still friends with, and clearly wanted to be intimate with her when he took her home once, but her brother was there, giving him the glare, so he left without getting any. The last time I spoke to him was a couple of years ago, and he had become a real schmuck after his parents divorced. He expected everyone to sympathize with him and to allow him to get mad at us whenever we try to help him. All of his old guy friends cut ties with him because they couldn't tolerate his behavior anymore, and all of us female friends cut ties with him as well because of how toxic he had become. His only friend, whom he dated, understood what he was going through because her parents had a nasty divorce that really affected her mentally and emotionally too, but when he insulted her entire family, including her beloved niece that she helped raise, she cut ties with him too. He actually blamed me for that because I told my friend that he was toxic and even pointed out that he wanted her to turn down a job offer just to go visit him for a week. Not sure what he's doing now. He's blocked on Facebook, but hopefully things have gotten better for him and he's managed to get professional help for his anger issues. Story 28. In my friend group, it's pretty easy. They are all really awesome and kind dudes, but they are still way too obsessed with looks. The irony, of course, being that they are like solid fives if you judge them only on looks. So what has happened is that they have set unrealistic expectations about who is attractive to them that they have over the years been internalized and embedded so deeply that they just don't feel attracted to anyone who was not a 9 out of 10. Then again, they're not schmucks at all, so they're probably not going to be single forever, but having realistic and reasonable explanations would help them not be single. Story 29. Knew a fellow back in the late 90s whose attitude to women was beyond repugnant. He believed that women were more or less property and existed to serve men and that they shouldn't be working. He was particularly disgusted by female doctors for some reason, saying he would never trust one. He didn't take the view that he couldn't understand why women didn't want to form a relationship with him. He knew exactly why, but he felt that the women were wrong for not agreeing with his views. Basically, he expected women to accept his misogynistic views without question. Anyways, he got someone pregnant after a one-night stand, and rather than forcing her to accept his misogynistic viewpoint, her brothers basically said to him that he was going to marry her and treat her like a princess, and if he didn't, then he was going to get a kicking. They are still together 25 years later, but he doesn't half look unhappy. Story 30. A friend of mine meets this guy through mutual friends, and the guy says something like he doesn't care what she does or how she behaves with him. His money is hers to spend, and she doesn't have to love him or even pretend to love him. He'll ride over all his estate, which was of significant worth, after 4 to 5 years of marriage. All he asked for was that she take care of his mother, who was 60, 70 then, cook for her, spend time with her, take care of her medication, etc. He was a fatalist with mother issues who saw nothing of a life beyond caring for his mother who had raised him alone. He had a good job but took every day off possible to spend it with his mother. His mom's favorite movies were his favorite movies, her taste in clothes, food, etc. were his tastes as well. He was her beholden, loyal son all the way to the end. From what she told me, he seemed well-adjusted, if stoic, very well-mannered, polite to the staff, intelligent, well-read, etc. Basically a perfect match, except for the bluntness with which he told her that their relationship and possible marriage was contingent on her continued rapport with his mother. Any arguments, any missed medications, any time his mother felt neglected, and he would walk, she walked first. Story 31. This may apply to both men and women, but I found it really funny when a guy gets asked the classic, "Hey, how are you?" by people he's not really that friendly with, that greeting that has to be done. Instead of just saying, "All good, thanks," and perhaps start a nice conversation, he starts talking about himself and how everything is going. While this is really important to do with people you're more connected to, I saw many girls getting annoyed really fast because they are trapped there listening to something they don't give a crap about. It might not be something as huge as other people have said here, but I think it's kind of the deal breaker for many girls. Story 32. There are a lot of crappy guys I know, and I just assume they're going to wind up with a crappy girl and make it work as a couple I don't like very much or go up in a crap storm. For the guys I think are genuinely good people with a good heart, what holds a lot of them back is just assuming that everyone else, including prospective partners, feel the same as them. I.e., this is something my new partner would like, but it's $60, and I wouldn't expect someone to spend that on me out of the blue, so why should I do that for them? Same thing goes for driving abnormal distances for trivial things to put a smile on their face, etc., etc. Part of being in a relationship is doing stuff for someone that doesn't seem worth it, but is because the smile you get makes the effort worth 10 times over. Story 33. Being someone they are not just to have attention. My soon-to-be ex-friend is acting that way. He used to be super kind, and his parents and brother loved to have our group of friends over at their place since the previous one was awful. They had a party once, and they left his house in awful conditions, from dirty plates to looking through personal stuff from his parents' room, and leaving pieces of grass and pizza under the couch and around the house. Super nasty. We'd help him clean up and get over his crush who just ignored him for months and smoking because he is depressed. Now the dude does not talk to our group. We got mad since only my boyfriend and I invite and propose what to do for the weekend. We discovered that he suddenly hates my boyfriend. They've been friends for 5+ years, and my BF has always been nice to him and tried so many times to give him wake-up calls since he has done many things to have attention, lol. Now he talks crap about my BF and plus 5 other people and acquaintances, and he is always proposing to his group to go clubbing and crap. We rarely went clubbing because he does not have that much money due to paying his parents and his car monthly, but now he's going all out with money. We were his friends who were there for him when he laughed, he cried, he felt happy or depressed, for everything. He also keeps flirting with a girl our friend is hanging out with while knowing that they have a thing between each other. Not exactly a relationship, but almost. He's overall been super disrespectful and trying to show off in all ways possible, even by getting intoxicated and having his father come to pick him up and getting into smoking. She keeps pushing him off, and this is not the first time it has happened. He keeps worrying that he won't have a BF or GF, but if he keeps acting that way, the probability gets even lower. Story 34. I'm going to say, me, trauma from my childhood, not going to elaborate unless asked to, but some people go mental and say, you're crying for help, this is not the place, just answer. I want to have a family. I love the feeling of a child hugging you and saying, I love you. My sister was born when I was 14 and my stepdad was not reliable. But due to said undisclosed trauma, I am terrified of trying to form a relationship, terrified of the what ifs when the relationship starts, terrified of becoming my parents, terrified of not being loved. So I am a hermit, just go out to walk my dog and buy my food and spend the rest of my time playing video games. Safer that way. I've tried a couple of times. Once she friend-zoned, I knew her since we were kids, her 12 and me 14. And the others, I just gave up. I kept telling myself, once I'm in Europe, I'm in the works with the German work Bundestag, and I'm settled, having an okay life, I will be free to try whenever I want. So yeah, I am the classic guy men see and say, yeah, they're gonna be single forever. Story 35. Men who can't figure out themselves first. I've struggled with this and thankfully found a partner who's seen some of it and helped me through it. But it's so important for a man to be independently stable before going into a relationship to make sure it's a strong bond between both parties. A lot of guys I know are either just looking for fooling around, have been hurt, or don't want anything serious, or jump from relationship to relationship, not seemingly being able to be single for long periods of time. Or even if they are, they're always struggling with their SO because they're controlling and overly obsessive. Personally, I think there are major red flags and something that should be seriously addressed, pondered upon, and resolved before trying to take care of someone else. Story 36. Hating every single one of their friends as girlfriends for regular flaws or negative traits is a red flag. I have a close friend I've known for about 25 years. He has seen me go through 4 or 5 long-term relationships in that time. While he is nice to them, he always has major issues with them that are just normal things. In that 25-year span, he has had one serious girlfriend that he is still hung up on 15 years later. He seriously thinks he's going to find some partner who is perfect on every single level. I've told him so many times through the years that it's just not how life works. People have flaws and couples have disagreements and arguments. He thinks he's going to find someone that agrees with everything he does, lets him do whatever he wants, is a 10 out of 10 in the looks department, and never argues with him. Story 37. My friend thought it would be a good idea to stick gum in some poor girl's hair. Now let me elaborate. We were around 15 and 16, and he saw a girl from our school who I'll name Jenny. She was minding her own business, and my friend dared me to slick gum in her hair. I said no. Then he said, fine, I'll do it myself, and then he did it. Immediately, he was slapped in the face, and I laughed my bum off and then let him deal with the situation. But Jenny told everyone, so he was hated by an entire school. Today, he has no girlfriend or anything, and that was a decade ago. Story 38. Guys who act hard all the time? Obviously, you're playing a character. Anyone who will actually stand up for themselves and fight won't wear it on their sleeves. Guys with absolute zero social skills, they walk around and try to interact with absolutely no one, which is fine. But when it's to the point where you're socially overwhelmed by small talk, then that's an issue. We're adults and you're acting like a nervous anime teenager. Guys who act like women are goddesses, they're all sweet, perfect little angels who never hurt anybody. Put women on pedestals so much that they get overwhelmingly anxious around women where they try to avoid all contact. Story 39. The guy that is only attracted to women that are way out of his league and has zero game to accommodate. Honestly, most things in here I can see some women somewhere settling for. I've seen some real pieces of work couple up, but the guy who can't understand where he sits in the looks category and has no game or confidence to move himself up will be single forever. I've never understood the low hygiene thing. It's not like confidence or humor where it's a whole psychological knot to unwind. It's a simple matter of showering a little more often and wearing deodorant. Story 40. Have a good friend. He's awesome and fun to be around sober. When he drinks, it's just a freaking mess. We're closer to 40 than we're not, and it's extremely painful to watch a grown man act sloppy, talking so much crap and trying to fight a rando at this stage. This wouldn't be so bad if he recognized he has a problem with drinking, but he doesn't. Despite being told multiple times by multiple people that his drinking is a problem, his sobriety never lasts more than a month or so. He will never find a meaningful relationship with a person so long as he values drinking more than people. Screw alcoholism. Story 41. A friend of mine is 6'2", handsome, smart, and interesting to talk to. The only thing is, I get way more girls than him because I actually talk to girls at parties. He doesn't talk at all. Last night, I had to introduce him to people. I think he said 2 sentences. He was looking at the weather app most of the night, then left early. Then he wonders why he has a bad time at parties. Like, dude, you have to talk to people to have fun. It's rough. I'm trying to help him with his anxiety, but there's only so much I can do. Story 42. Being narrow sighted and shallow, seeing zero reason to change or make an effort to be likable. The type to act like they're a leader but don't take true accountability, just make excuses and blames everyone else. Ones who don't bother putting in effort to make those around them feel like they actually care or acknowledge them. But the worst excuse for a man I've ever seen, stolen many times from so called friends in vulnerable places who are nice enough to put a roof over his worthless head, constantly cheats on his girlfriend, then manipulates her into not arguing about it, and now he's engaged. So maybe I'm the one who's doing something wrong? LMAO. And if any of these stories got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're gonna love this. I'll catch you in that video.